One.
All right, class. I'm your instructor, Desmond Hill. Today, I will lecture on the concepts of suffrage, responsible citizenship, and democracy. I will discuss a bit of condensed history in regards to voting in the United States of America. At the end of the class, you will be linked to a Cahoots lesson that you will take and be graded on. Feel free to watch and rewatch as much as needed before taking the test. All right, are we ready? Let's begin. First, let us define suffrage. It is simply put the right to vote in political elections. In a democracy, the idea is that you elect officials that will represent you, or a system of government by the whole population or all the eligible members of a state, typically through elected representatives. If you're familiar with the term taxation without representation, you may know that one of the prevailing issues in the 13 colonies prior to the Revolutionary War was that people felt that they were being unfairly taxed without proper representation. The Crown of England got to decide how much money the colonists would be taxed, how frequently they would be taxed, and what those tax dollars would be spent on, and what the penalty would be for delinquency on payment. These are some of the things that led to unrest in the British occupied 13 colonies and the rise of anti British sentiment. One of the most well known commentators on those issues was one Thomas Paine, who wrote a pamphlet known as Common Sense. One of his most famous quotes from Common Sense was, "Small islands not capable of protecting themselves are the proper objects for kingdoms to take under their care, but there is something absurd in supposing a continent be perpetually governed by an island." Thomas Paine, Common Sense, 1775, 1776. Fast forward, war ensues, British rule is ended in the colonies, and a Declaration of Independence is drafted. A new government is set up that is to be governed by elected officials, not people simply born into power. A government representative of people elected by the people. But who are the people and who gets to decide who they are? It is important to know who was allowed to vote and when. George Washington was elected to presidency in February 4th, 1789, with 69 electoral votes. Washington won the support of each participating elector. No other president since has come into office with a universal mandate to lead. Until the advent of the constitutional amendments such as the 15th, 19th, and the 26th Amendment, and we'll get into some of these later, there were no constitutional protections on the basis of race, sex, gender, whether you were previously under bondage, and so on. It is reasonable to conclude that between 1787 and 1870, those who were allowed to vote were mainly white male Protestants who owned property over the age of 21. It wasn't until June 4th, 1919, that women read mostly white women, were allowed to vote at that time. Ratified on August 18th, 1920, the 19th Amendment granted women the right to vote. The fight for women's suffrage was hard fought and eventually won. The idea of where women belonged in society started traditionally as in the home and domesticated roles, but as the American experiment invited ideals of freedom and equality, it allowed and, in some few spaces, encouraged women to imagine what freedom and equality meant to them. These ideas turned into organization, and the first Women's Rights Convention was held in Seneca Falls, New York. And it advertised itself as a convention to discuss the social, civil, and religious condition and rights of women. It spanned over 2 days, July 19th, July 20th in 1848. Many women helped push the women's suffrage movement forward. You may know of Elizabeth Cady Stanton. 1815 and 1902 were the years when she was born and she died. She was an author, lecturer, and chief philosopher of the women's rights and suffrage movements. And she was once quoted as saying, "The Bible and the church have been the greatest stumbling blocks in the way of the women's emancipation." Ida B. Wells Barnett largely community-based efforts, especially with the Alpha Suffrage Club, helped the women's suffrage movement reach its success. Her work helped pass the presidential and municipal bill in Illinois in June 1913, giving women over the age of 21 partial suffrage, the right to vote in presidential and municipal, but not state elections. She helped register women's voters and constantly encouraged women who remained doubtful of their place in the electoral process. Wells Barnett traveled throughout Chicago and Illinois, emboldening African American women to vote and participate in politics. Lucy Stone, born 1818, died 1893, graduated from Oberlin College in Ohio in 1847. She became a lecturer for the Massachusetts Anti-Slavery Society, which soon granted her permission to devote part of each week to speak on her own for women's rights. She was instrumental in the organization of several other women's rights conventions. Another advocate for women's rights was the abolitionist Frederick Douglass. Born into slavery in February 1818, Douglass lived long enough to see the 15th Amendment signed into law. The 15th Amendment granted African American men the right to vote and was adopted into the U.S. Constitution in 1870. Douglass died February 20th, 1895. It must be stated, despite the amendment, by the late 1870s, discriminatory practices were used to prevent African Americans from exercising their right to vote, especially in the South. Another hero in the story of suffrage and equal rights is Eleanor Roosevelt. Jumping ahead here. She served as First Lady between March 1933 and April 1945. Her husband, of course, was President Franklin D. Roosevelt. Eleanor was a champion for human rights and a proponent of the civil rights movement and an inspiration to many in upholding the ideals of fairness, democracy, and advocating for many causes. She famously flew with Tuskegee Airman Charles Alfred Chief Anderson in March 1941 of the Tuskegee Airmen, an all-black squad that flew during World War II and during the height of segregation. Of course, there were Eleanor's dissenters that were against her push for desegregation. And in 1944, she wrote a letter to one such dissenter, and she stated, these are the right for equal education, the right to work for equal pay according to ability, the right to justice under the law, the right to participate in the making of the laws by use of the ballot. Eleanor Roosevelt to Addie Frizzle, May 13th, 1944. We still have a long way to go in regards to voting and equality. There are still, to this day, voting advocates who organize, who try to get those who are eligible to vote, those who are older, that are 18 and older. There are those who fight to give those who have committed felonies and serve their time to reestablish their ability to vote. And of course, citizens in the U.S. territories like Guam and the Virgin Islands can participate in our primary elections. It is important that citizens of this democratic republic engage in these democratic practices to influence policy, what we spend on education, local and national law, the conflicts that we engage in, and how we engage in them. This has been my lecture on suffrage and voting rights. There's going to be a link to the Kahoot that I set up. Thank you for listening. You can watch and rewatch as much as possible, and have a good day.